There is something you do so automatically that you probably don't even notice it anymore. Before a conversation that might be difficult, you've already imagined how it goes wrong. Before a result you're waiting on, you've already started preparing for the bad news. Before someone responds to your message, you've already considered the version where they're upset. Before anything has actually happened, your body is already slightly tense. Already slightly ready. Already slightly braced for impact. And if someone asked you why you do this, you'd probably say something like, "I just like to be prepared." Or, "I've been disappointed before." Or, "It's better to expect the worst and be surprised than to hope and get hurt." And all of that sounds reasonable. All of that sounds like something a sensible, experienced person would say. But here is the question nobody ever asks you. Is it actually working? Is the preparation actually protecting you from anything? Or are you just paying the full emotional cost of bad things that mostly never happen? Because if you look honestly at the pattern, and I mean really honestly, not the version where you defend it, what you'll probably find is this. The bad thing you were preparing for usually doesn't arrive. And when it does arrive, it almost never arrives the way you imagined. Which means most of the suffering you've done in preparation was suffering for something that never happened. You paid the price. The thing never showed up to collect. That is not protection. That is just pain in advance. And there is a very specific reason you keep doing it. Here's the reason. And it's simpler than you think. At some point in your life, something caught you off guard. Maybe more than once. Maybe many times. Something painful arrived without warning, and the shock of it, the unprepared, exposed, unready feeling of being hit by something you didn't see coming, that feeling was bad enough that your brain made a decision. A quiet decision, not a conscious one, not one you chose deliberately. The decision was, never again. Never again will I be caught off guard. If I see it coming, at least I'm ready. At least the shock doesn't take me out. At least I have some control over how I receive the hit. And that decision made complete sense. In that moment, in that context, with what you had been through, preparing for the worst was the most intelligent thing your nervous system could do. It was protection. Real protection. The kind that costs something but feels worth it because the alternative felt unbearable. The problem is that the decision never got revisited. The context changed and the response stayed. The thing that hurt you is not hurting you anymore, or not in the same way, or not from the same place. But your body is still running the old instruction. Still bracing. Still preparing. Still arriving at ordinary moments in a defensive position that those moments never asked for. You are protecting yourself from something that is mostly in the past. And the protection is costing you the present. Now here is the first thing that actually helps. And it's small enough that you can do it right now. The next time you notice the bracing, and you'll notice it as a physical thing, a tightness somewhere, a held breath, a slight contraction in the chest or the stomach, don't try to think your way out of it. Don't tell yourself to calm down or that things will be fine. Just breathe out. Long and slow, all the way out, longer than the in-breath, until the lungs are genuinely empty. That's not a relaxation trick. That's a direct signal to the part of your nervous system that has been running the bracing. It tells the system, in the only language it actually understands, that the danger level is not what it thought. The body begins to release the contraction slightly. Just slightly. But that slight release creates a moment of space that wasn't there before. And in that moment of space, something becomes possible that the full brace doesn't allow. You can actually look at what's in front of you. Not the imagined version. Not the worst case the preparation was already running. The actual situation. What is actually here, right now, before the prediction filled in the rest. And almost every time, what is actually here is smaller and more manageable than what the bracing was preparing you for. But the exhale is just the entry point. There's something underneath the bracing that the breath alone doesn't reach. And this is the part that actually changes the pattern rather than just interrupting individual moments of it. The bracing keeps going because somewhere, underneath all the specific situations it attaches to, there is a belief that is still running. A belief your nervous system formed when it made that original decision. The belief is, I cannot handle being caught off guard. That if something hard arrives without warning, without preparation, without the armor already in place, I won't be okay. And that belief has never been tested, honestly. Because every time the uncertain thing arrived, you were already braced. So you never got to find out what happens when you're not. You never got to discover that you can handle the unexpected. That you have handled the unexpected, many times, even when the preparation didn't work the way you planned. That the unready version of you is more capable than the always braced version of you has ever been allowed to demonstrate. Think about something hard that happened to you. Something that arrived differently than you expected, or something you weren't fully prepared for. You're still here. You got through it. Not because the armor was perfect. Because you have a capacity that the armor keeps trying to take credit for. The armor didn't get you through the hard things. You did. And the armor has been taking credit for your own resilience ever since. Here is what that realization makes possible. When the bracing arrives before something uncertain, when the body tightens before the conversation, before the result, before the response, you now have a different question available to you. Not am I ready for this to go badly, but have I handled hard things before? The answer is always yes. Not every hard thing. Not perfectly. But enough times, in enough situations, with enough of the outcome resting on your ability to respond to something you didn't fully anticipate, that the evidence is there. The track record exists. You just haven't been looking at it because the bracing convinced you it was the thing doing the protecting. Ask the question honestly. Have I handled hard things before? And then let the honest answer be actual evidence. Not a motivational phrase. Not something you say to feel better. Real evidence, from your real history, that the version of you standing here right now is capable of meeting what comes even without preparing for the worst version of it first. That evidence, taken seriously, begins to do something the exhale alone cannot. It begins to update the belief. The one that says you can't handle being caught off guard. Because the record says otherwise. And the record is more accurate than the fear. There is one last piece, and it's the one that makes everything else sustainable. The bracing has been making your life smaller without announcing that's what it was doing. Every time you pulled back from something because the worst case felt too probable. Every time you held something at arm's length because full investment felt too exposed. Every time you kept something good at a slight distance because letting it fully land felt like setting yourself up for a fall. All of that was the armor working exactly as it was designed. Keeping you defended. Keeping you at a manageable distance from both the bad and the good. Because the armor cannot tell the difference. You brace against disappointment and you also brace against joy. You prepare for things to hurt and you also prevent things from fully reaching you when they don't. The same protective distance that keeps the pain at arm's length keeps everything else there too. And here is what becomes available when the bracing loosens even slightly. Not vulnerability in the dramatic sense. Just presence. Just being actually in the moment that's happening rather than slightly ahead of it in the one that might happen next. Just allowing the ordinary good things, the conversation that goes fine, the result that arrives okay, the silence that turns out to mean nothing significant, to actually land. To actually register. To count as evidence that the world is not as reliably threatening as the old data suggested. That's all the bracing needs to start updating. Not dramatic proof that everything is safe. Just enough ordinary evidence, received fully instead of at a distance, that the prediction system begins to revise what it calls the most probable outcome. You learned to prepare for the worst for a reason. A real reason. A reason that made sense when it was formed. And that reason belongs to a time in your life that is behind you. Your nervous system just hasn't been shown that yet, clearly enough, consistently enough, to let the instruction go. The exhale is the beginning. The honest question, have I handled hard things before, is the next step. And actually letting the ordinary moments land, without the armor deciding in advance what they're going to mean, is how the prediction finally learns that the world it's been preparing you for is not the world you're actually in. You're allowed to stop bracing for a life that isn't coming and start being in the one that's already here.